Guillermina has a bed and breakfast cottage in Spain and has asked us for help when speaking with her English-speaking guests. We'll look at some useful bed and breakfast vocabulary today in this episode of
Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
Hello, my name's Craig.
And my name's Reza.
And together with nearly 50 years of teaching English between us, we're going to help you improve your English and take your grammar, your vocabulary, all aspects of your English up to the next level. If you're a new listener, you're very welcome. And if you've listened before, thank you for coming back. How are you, Reza?
I'm very well, Craig. How are you?
I'm feeling fantastic. Very excited to be podcasting again with you this week. What's first?
First, we've got a message from Camila. She's from Chile, but she's living in Austria at the moment. And she is going to do the TOEFL, the TOEFL, the American TOEFL test, and she needs a B2 level.
Okay, let's listen to Camila.
Okay, this is like my third time doing this voice message. Hello guys, my name is Camila. I'm from Chile, but now I'm living in Austria. And I really love you guys. You are the best. You make me so happy every morning, every day, every night. I love you guys. And I need your help because I'm going to take the TOEFL test and I have to get a B2 level. So I have problems with the part of writing and reading, and I really need some advices. So if you have, please let me know. And that, I love you guys. Please, if you come to Vienna, let me know. Please, 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 please. Bye.
I would love to go to Vienna. I would love to taste the chocolate pastries and the cakes and the chocolate Sasha cakes in the cafes in Vienna. It sounds absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, is it true, Camila, the cliche that you see them with these big multiple layered pastry cake? What do you call them? Those things that have trolleys, and they've got like a special thing which has like 3 layers on it, you know? Like a kind of pyramid of goodies. Does that really exist? Do you get that in Austrian cafes? If so, I'm going with Craig.
And there's a string quartet playing classical music in the corner and they're dressed in very smart clothes. It sounds absolutely fantastic. Well, you obviously don't need any help with your speaking, Camila, because the message was absolutely wonderful. Even if it did take you 3 times before you were happy with it, which is what we like, because we want you to record your message and maybe think, well, I can improve it a little if I try again, and maybe I can improve my pronunciation with this word. And if you keep practicing, keep recording your message before you send it, you're getting great speaking practice. That's the idea.
Yes, Camila, what a very good message. Totally clear. Even though you made a tiny mistake, but we still understood you. It wasn't a big mistake. You said the word advices. You want writing and reading advices. No, writing and reading advice. No S, because advice in English, unlike Spanish, is uncountable. You cannot say an plus advice. You can say a piece of advice. So maybe you want some pieces of advice or just advice.
And it's not easy for us to give you specific advice on the TOEFL test as far as your writing and reading is concerned, because you didn't say exactly what areas you need improvement on. So we can only direct you to podcasts we've made in the past that we hope will help you. And if you do have any specific questions, then please get back to us and let us know. We did do an episode specifically on the TOEFL and IELTS test. That was back in episode 68. So go to inglespodcast.com/68. And Reza, what about reading skills? How could Camila improve her reading?
Yes, we've also done a podcast about reading skills. It was episode 280. So have a look at inglespodcast.com 280, or you could follow the link that we've left in the show notes. That's specifically for improving your reading skills.
And there's a good service that I saw on Google, and I think Sandra mentioned this when she came to record with us about British and American English, a service called Magoosh, MAGOOSH. They have a very good website and app, I think, about TOEFL. So there's a link in the show notes to this episode 302, that takes you to the Magoosh home page. I think that will help you also.
And speaking of American and British English, I noticed, Camila, that you've got a nice American accent. You've got a very, very good accent, good pronunciation, and I guess American accent is even better to prepare you for the TOEFL exam.
If you are preparing for an exam or a job interview or any kind of English test, one thing you could do is get a personal one-to-one teacher to help you prepare for the test and get the best marks possible. Where can you find a teacher that will help you do that? Any idea, Reza?
Yes, italki comes to mind. I can tell you from my own experience because I've used them. I tried it out for a French teacher. What is italki? Well, it's an online platform. So what you do is you go to their webpage and you look for a teacher. So you will have a real person teaching you. Italki simply gets you in touch with them. So italki have a lot of teachers available, and depending on the qualifications, the experience, the availability of the teacher, they all charge different prices. So you choose the teacher who's best for you. The timetable is going to be an important thing as well. So different teachers are available at different prices, giving different services at different times. You can look at their profile, and when you think you've got the teacher who's right for you, for example, like Camilla, you might want an American accent, or you might want a British accent or an Irish accent, whatever. italki has all that variety. So you choose the teacher that best suits you. What's more, if you sign up to them through us, so follow the link in the show notes, and you buy your first class, they will give you free $10 of credit to start your classes. That's an offer which is only open to people who sign up with italki through Aprender Inglés with Reza and Craig.
So for that offer, go to inglespodcast.com/302. And thank you very much, italki, for sponsoring this podcast.
So let's get down to the main business for today. That voice message we mentioned in the introduction from Guillermina, who's from Asturias.
Hello, Reza. Hello, Greg. Nice to meet you. My name is Guillermina and I'm from Spain. I live in Asturias, southwest, in Somiedo's Natural Park. I have a casa rural here, but I don't know if there is something like this in England. It's like a small hotel with bed and breakfast in a small village in the mountains. So, well, perhaps it will be possible podcasts about accommodation and in general about rural tourism. It will be useful to me in order to improve my English vocabulary and try to communicate better with my foreigners guests. Somiedo is a wonderful place to visit, and of course, you are always welcome here. Bye.
Thank you very much for your message. That was lovely and clear.
Yes, thank you very much, Guillermina. What a lovely message. I think you said you're from Asturias, southwest. What we should say really is you're from southwest or southwestern Asturias.
Southwestern.
Yeah, because it's like an adjective describing which part of Asturias. So we put adjectives first in English. So you're from southwestern Asturias. You're from Somiedo, I think you said. Now, I've never been there, but both Craig and I have been in Asturias. We really love it. I've been in Gijón, Taramundi, Cangas de Onís, Llanes, and Ribadeo. Is that Asturias or Galicia? I may be lost there. Maybe that's Galicia. But I've been in those four places, which I really... and San Martín de Oscos. But I haven't been in Somiedo. And I've been in Oviedo. But I haven't been in Somiedo, but I bet it's beautiful.
It sounds like a beautiful area, especially because you're in a national park. So if anyone's touring in Asturias or thinking of going there, why don't you get in touch with Guillermina and go stay with her? To help you with some vocabulary, I want to refer you to a previous podcast that we've done speaking about touring holidays in the UK. Go back to inglespodcast.com/164 and you'll see some information and vocabulary on that episode. Before we look in detail at some vocabulary that might help you, Rezo, any comments on Guillermina's message?
It was perfectly clear. We understood everything and the pronunciation was quite good. But you did say one little thing which was wrong. You said you're foreigner guests. Yes, they're foreigners, but foreigner is a noun, a foreigner. Guest is a noun, so we can't say foreigner and guest. So we got to use the adjective, your foreign guests. They are foreigners or they are foreign guests.
And you spoke about your Casa Rural, and I don't think we've got an exact translation in English, but maybe you could call it a cottage or a farmhouse, or maybe a rural guest house would be the best translation, because obviously it's in the countryside, it's outside of the city, so it's a rural guest house. That's RURAL. When was the last time you stayed in a rural guest house in Spain?
Oh, quite a few years ago. I think it was about 15 years ago, a long time ago.
Wow.
It was in Teruel. Exactly where? Can't even remember the name of the place. And you?
It's been a while, but I am going soon. I'm going to see some flamingos in March, somewhere near Malaga. I can't remember the exact name of the village, but I have booked a rural farmhouse or guest house to stay in March to go and enjoy the nature in that part of Spain.
I've just remembered that I have stayed in a rural guest house in Asturias, but not Guillermina's. But it was even before the last time, more like 20 years ago, I stayed in a rural guest house in San Martín de Oscos. That's where I stayed, in a rural guest house in Spain.
And was it nice? Do you remember anything about it? The facilities of the place, what was it like?
The facilities were very rustic, very rural, but comfortable. And I remember the surrounding neighborhood was mostly farmland. So there were farm animals nearby. There were some dogs barking occasionally. The air was really clean and pure. It was very hilly, lots of hills. Here in Valencia, we're used to flat ground. It was nice to walk through the hills. That was very nice. See lots of cows. It was a very, very pleasant experience.
And when you stay in a place like Guillermina's, which is a bed and breakfast place, or sometimes you hear B&B, bed and breakfast, it's a small place where guests stay, and you can book these places on Airbnb and similar sites like booking.com or hotels.com. Let's look at some vocabulary, some specific vocabulary that might be useful when you're staying in these kind of places.
Yeah, you mentioned that it's a small place like Guillermina's. Yes, but there's another meaning of B&B, which is the actual service you get. So you can get B&B even in a very big hotel in the middle of a city. So Guillermina has a B&B. She has a rural guest house. But you can get B&B service even in a big hotel in London. That means you pay for the bed and the breakfast. So it can be a place like Guillermina's, or it can be the service of getting a bed and breakfast.
But of course, the only meal you're paying for is the breakfast. If you stay in a hotel or a guest house and you're paying for lunch and the evening meal, you'd say full board. Full board. 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch and dinner. Or you could choose between lunch and dinner. So you have breakfast and dinner included, or breakfast and lunch included. And that's half board.
Now, Craig, imagine we've just arrived at Guillermina's B&B. What's the first thing we've got to do?
Say hello.
Yep. Say hello, and Guillermina will practice her English. And after that?
Well, you check in. You check in at the reception desk or the check-in desk. So sometimes you need to present your passport, show your passport, and fill in your details at the desk.
What does that mean? Fill in your details.
Sometimes you complete a form or you just give your name, your surname, and your passport number. And to fill in a form or fill out a form means rellenar, to put your details in the relevant places on the form.
Now, you're going for B&B, bed and breakfast, and one of the first questions that the owner, el dueño or la dueña, is going to ask you is, what do you want for breakfast? And what might you ask for?
Well, there could be a couple of choices. One basic choice is a continental breakfast, which is usually a light breakfast with maybe orange juice, some cereal or some toast and a coffee or some tea. But if you're traveling, especially in the UK, you might be offered a full English breakfast. What does that include, Reza?
A full English, sometimes we don't even say the word breakfast because we understand. A full English breakfast has variations, but it will definitely include fried bacon, egg, sausages, nearly always mushrooms, tomatoes, and toast. Sometimes you get additional things. Sometimes you get baked beans. I can't imagine in Asturias. Well, no, maybe I can imagine, unfortunately. But I would like to think that not too many guiris will go to Asturias and ask for baked beans. But you never know. I would rather have a fabada asturiana myself. But you might get someone who wants beans from a tin for breakfast. Is possible. For you, does a full English include the baked beans?
Not necessarily, although it could. Maybe some scrambled eggs, perhaps, or fried eggs. And usually with these big breakfasts that you can get in the UK, you also get, as Reza said, toast and jam, marmalade and cereal, orange juice. So it's the full thing. It's a really big, heavy meal. And my advice will be eat it as late as possible in the morning and then don't have lunch, because it will fill you up. There's loads of food, and you could quite easily just get through the day with a small snack and have dinner in the evening, because there's a lot of food there. So if you have it at maybe 10 o'clock or 10:30, you don't really need lunch.
Yeah, I remember one summer traveling through Scotland, and I stayed in B&Bs in rural Scotland. And what I did most days was walk a lot, so I was very tired, have a very light dinner early, and go to bed not hungry, but having eaten very little early, and then wake up in the morning ready for that full, not English, in that case it would be a full Scottish breakfast. So be careful if you're in Scotland, don't ask for a full English in Scotland or even in Ireland. But we all understand if you say a full English, but there are slight variations in Ireland and Scotland, but it's more or less the same.
Some of the best cooked breakfasts I've eaten was when we were traveling and touring around Ireland. Irish breakfasts in bed and breakfast places in the countryside, very similar to Guillermina's place, but obviously in Ireland, where they had fantastic breakfasts in the morning.
Was an addition to the Irish one, or a change perhaps, potato bread?
Yes, or soda bread. And wonderful scrambled eggs and huge pots of tea. It was absolutely amazing. Fantastic breakfasts.
And yet in Ireland, very often we don't bother with the baked beans. We're not so keen on the baked beans. So you might get the potato bread, but you might not get the baked beans. And I imagine in Asturias, you're not going to get baked beans. Just have a fabada asturiana for lunch.
Yeah, that will fill you up. So we mentioned bed and breakfast places and guest houses. Another word you could use for similar accommodation is an inn. That's not in, I-N, the preposition. That's double N. So I-double-N is in Spanish a posada or pensión or a taberna. So you can stay at an inn as well.
It's a slightly old-fashioned word, isn't it? Although people still use it, it sounds old-fashioned. We think of a very rustic, old-fashioned country kind of a place. It's not going to be a modern building. It's probably going to be an old building if it's an inn.
Yeah, maybe with stables for the horses and cows in the fields.
Perhaps young people these days, the only time they hear the word inn is when they hear the Christmas story. Everybody knows about how Joseph and Mary were traveling to Bethlehem and there was no room at the inn, is the typical line they say at Christmas. No room in the inn, the posada. So that's why they ended up in the stable.
When you stay at a guest house, obviously you're asked what kind of room you would like, or more specifically, what bed you would like. So if you're traveling by yourself, you'd ask for a single bed, or if you're traveling with a partner, a double bed. A very big double bed is a king size bed or a queen size bed. I'm not sure which is bigger. I think king size is bigger, isn't it, than queen?
I think so, yeah. Or you might want two beds. In that case, you'll have to ask for twin beds. So if there are two people, but you don't want to sleep in the same bed, then you'll ask for twin beds.
And there's one thing that really bothers me, and I have to rant about this a little. To rant, R-A-N-T, is to complain heavily about something. And I do hope, Guillermina, that you don't do this. Have you ever stayed in places that have bedspreads there that are never washed on the bed?
Yes.
Like covers on top of the beds?
Yeah.
That's called a bedspread. And sometimes pillows, but not pillows that you put your head on, like cushions, cojines. Cushions, scatter cushions that are on the bed that are never washed and they're there for decoration. They serve no purpose. There's no use. But you have these pillows and bedspreads that immediately I remove because it for some reason, it really bothers me.
Yes, I have exactly the same obsession about them as you. I really dislike them.
Why do they do it? Why do people put them there?
I don't know, because like you, I think everybody does what I do. They take this and they immediately throw it onto the floor. So it spends most of its time on the floor, right?
Well, maybe not on the floor, but definitely in the cupboard or on a chair or somewhere off of the bed. Guillermina, please tell me you don't do this. If you're traveling with children or good friends, it's a good idea to get two rooms that are connected by a door. And these are called adjoining rooms. Adjoining rooms, because one room adjoins to the other and they're connected with a door that you can close.
Craig, what type of bathroom arrangements do you like whenever you go to a B&B?
I definitely do not like a shared bathroom unless there's no option. I like an ensuite bathroom, which means the bathroom and the toilet and the shower are in the same room, or at least accessible to me directly, and I don't have to go outside and look for a bathroom that's maybe 10 or 20 meters down the corridor. What about you? Does that bother you?
Yes, I don't really like it. I mean, if I have no choice, okay. But I don't really like shared bathrooms, above all for at night when I inevitably have to get up in the middle of the night and go to the toilet. I got to leave the room, go down a corridor. It's quite irritating and much easier to have an ensuite bathroom. And especially if you're on your own, if you're not sharing the room, go down to the bathroom. Oh, what's happened? You forgot the key. Now you can't get back in and now you're in a mess. Now you got to wake up the owner. Oh dear, oh dear. Bad story.
Another important word, Guillermina, could be amenities. Amenities. What are amenities? Your guests may ask about your amenities. Well, that's the convenient things that are in the area to make your guests' stay more pleasant. For example, a supermarket. Is there a supermarket nearby? Are there cafes? Are there shops? Maybe a swimming pool or a tennis court or even a gym in a bigger hotel. So amenities are the extra things in the area or even in the same hotel that make the stay more pleasant for the guest.
Another thing which guests will be interested in are the attractions. So an attraction is anything that attracts tourists to the area. So I imagine typical attractions of Guillermina's rural guest house are beautiful scenery, perhaps lakes, forests, mountains. There might be some interesting historic building nearby or some monument. All of those could be attractions. And if you want to see the attractions, you'll go sightseeing. So to see the typical sites, the monuments, the museums, the old houses, the nice scenery.
Two words that are very, very similar, baggage and luggage. There isn't much difference, and those words are quite interchangeable. For example, when you're at the airport, you could see a sign that says baggage claim or luggage claim or baggage reclaim when you pick up your baggage or your luggage or you collect it from the conveyor belt. Another sign you may see, lost luggage or unclaimed baggage. So those two words, baggage and luggage, it doesn't really matter. Although in American English, baggage is more used, it's more common. And also there's a collocation which does not work with luggage, and that's emotional baggage. So if you have emotional baggage or political baggage, that's something you carry around with you. For example, Simon always looks depressed. He's carrying around a lot of emotional baggage. So that's one use of baggage that you would not have with luggage. But generally speaking, with staying and touring and traveling, it doesn't matter which word you use.
And be careful not to fall for the trap of the false friend. We sometimes say claim, sometimes reclaim. I've seen both. You can say luggage claim or luggage reclaim, baggage claim, baggage reclaim. It doesn't really make a difference in English, because to claim something means to say it's yours, and to reclaim means to say it's yours again. So you leave your bag, and you see both written in airports. But it's not reclamar. It's definitely not that. In Spanish, reclamar in English would be complain. Mm-hmm. Don't fall for that false friend. To reclaim or claim your luggage is not to make a complaint. It just means to get it back again. Typical false friend.
If you're thinking of coming to visit Valencia and do some sightseeing in March when the Fallas Festival is happening, you had better book in advance and make your reservations well in advance, well ahead of your trip. Because if you arrive a day before Fallas begins, a lot of the hotels and the bed and breakfasts will be fully booked. If a place is fully booked, there are no vacancies. So it's a really good idea to make a reservation or make a booking before you arrive in advance.
Reservation, more typical American English, booking more typical in British English, but they mean the same thing. When you make your reservation, you'll need to know the room rate. That basically means how much does it cost per night, the room rate, the price. What's room service, Craig?
That's when you're feeling really lazy and you want to eat something in your room or have something in your room and you can't be bothered to go downstairs to the restaurant perhaps or the bar. Then you make a phone call, you phone reception and order something from room service, and that gets delivered to your room. So maybe you fancy a cup of tea in the afternoon, phone and ask for room service.
In bigger places, perhaps not a Guillermina's small B&B, but in bigger places they tend to have brochures in the room which explain the different facilities they've got. The room service, for example, the room rate and other extra services. Also, they might have tourist brochures. I imagine Guillermina has tourist brochures in the rooms or perhaps at the reception.
And there are some things that your guests might ask for. For example, they may need extra linen or bedclothes. So sheets and pillows, or maybe a spare pillow, which is an extra pillow, or something where you put the pillow inside, which is a pillowcase, la funda. You may have guests asking for these things. They could ask for towels, or they could ask for an extra blanket if they are cold. What else could they ask for, Reza?
They might ask for a baby's cot, CO2. CO2?
CO2?
Yes. CO2, it's
Carbon dioxide.
isn't it? No, they won't ask for that. They'd be a strange guess if they did that.
Maybe oxygen.
Oxygen, please. Sorry, I'll try and...
Hello, room service. No, some carbon dioxide, please.
You're the freshest you've got.
We'll send the car right up to you.
Yeah, I don't know, I like this clean country, or give me some CO2.
I'm missing the city.
If you've got a baby or a very small child, you might want a cot. C-O-T. A baby's cot. That is like a bed, but it's kind of like enclosed so the baby can't fall out.
Is it cuña in Spanish?
It is, yeah. So a baby's cot you might ask for. And particularly if you're British or Irish, you might well need tea facilities or tea making facilities. Usually in a British or Irish B&B, they're already there. But if they're not, sometimes people ask for them. So they'll ask for a kettle to boil the water and maybe a little bit of milk and a couple of cups and cutlery, a spoon to stir it. Very important.
For me, that's really important. In fact, I would almost say essential. So important for me that when we travel, we often take a portable electric boiler for the water and tea bags and some powdered milk, because it's really important for us to have a drink in the room.
Craig, what do you mean by boiler? Because in the UK and Ireland, there's usually a kettle, an electric kettle already in the room. What do you mean by boiler?
Yeah, the problem is in some places, especially in Spain, they don't often have a kettle. So what the boiler thing is, inside a kettle, there's a metal filament that heats up the water and makes the water boil. So you can buy just the plug and a wire, and on the end of the wire is just the filament, the metal thing that heats the water and boils the water. So you put it inside a cup and it boils the water. And then you add your tea bag and your milk and you have a cup of tea in the room. It's very, very useful. And they're very small. They don't take up a lot of space in the bag.
That's a good idea. Much smaller than a kettle.
Yep.
Craig, who cleans the room in a B&B?
Well, a maid will possibly clean the room, a housemaid. And the service is called housekeeping. So would you generally tip the maid if you stayed in a hotel or a B&B?
No, I never do, I must say. Although I might in America because I would feel like I have to.
Yeah.
But in Europe, no. What about you?
Not unless I was staying for a long time, perhaps, and the maid was particularly attentive or particularly helpful. And maybe if I asked for one or two things like clean towels or some extra sugar and tea bags and she brought them to me, maybe I would give her a tip, yeah. But generally, just for 2 or 3 nights, I probably wouldn't tip the maid.
And do you normally ask for a wake-up call in the morning?
I used to, and I might if I have to catch a plane or be up at a particular time. It was really important. But these days, most people have mobile phones. And you can often program the phone in the room or the clock in the room to wake you up. But maybe just as an extra precaution, if I had to catch a plane, I would put a request in for a wake-up call.
That's when they call the telephone in your room, yeah, to tell you to get up.
Exactly. Another point to make, Guillermina, is always be as polite as possible with your guests and use very polite expressions. You probably don't know the guests when they arrive unless they're repeat guests. So because you don't know them personally, it's a good idea to be extra polite and use expressions like, would you like an extra blanket, and not, do you want an extra blanket? Use expressions like, could I get you, for example. And also indirect questions. For example, I was wondering if you'd like a cup of tea, or would you mind taking off your boots before you come into the house? To get more information of indirect questions, we did do a full podcast on this back in episode 50 with Nicola. So go to inglespodcast.com/50 if you want to revise and practice your indirect questions that you can use with your guests.
Craig, can you think of any advantages that small B&Bs have over large hotels?
Oh, yes, definitely. They are more personable. They're more intimate. There's a closer connection with the owner. And you can often get very interesting local advice based around the area where the person lives. They tend to be cheaper, although that's not necessarily true. But it's definitely easier to meet people because when you go down for breakfast, there's often a small dining room with maybe 2 or 3 other guests. And I think it's a lot easier to start a conversation than in a bigger hotel with a big dining room. What do you think?
Yes, I totally agree. More intimate. But can you think of any disadvantages of a B&B that you don't find in a big hotel?
They could be full, especially if there's one that's in a national park like Guillermina's. Maybe it's difficult to get to and you think, oh, I really want to stay in this village. There's only one in the area or 2 and they may be full. They have full occupancy, so it's difficult to get a room for the night. Can you think of any others?
One other inconvenience could be that you might be quite far from amenities. You might be quite far from a doctor or a supermarket or whatever. But I imagine you've come by car, so it shouldn't be so difficult to go to get a doctor or go shopping if you really need to.
Yeah, and I suppose if you come by car and you're in the countryside, parking isn't a problem as it might be in the city. But the owner of the B&B might have some difficulties. There may be problems with the weather. We've had really bad weather in some parts of Spain recently, so that would affect the owner of the B&B. And they may have to spend money on repairs of things that get damaged in the room or in the house. People might cancel their booking, which means you're left with not full occupancy in high season.
I imagine that's a big problem, Guillermina, is it, for B&B owners? Because if one group or one person cancels a booking at a hotel, it's not such a big problem. They'll have several more. But maybe in your B&B, you only have 1 or 2 rooms. Mm-hmm. And if they cancel one room, that's 50% of your income gone.
Yeah.
So that could be a big problem for B&B owners.
Well, that's all we have time for this week. We would love to hear from you, so why not send us a voice message as Guillermina did and tell us your name, where you're from, and if you have any ideas for a podcast we could do, we would love to hear from you. How can people contact us, Reza?
Our favorite way is to hear your voice. So send us a voice message to speakpipe.com/inglespodcast.
Or send us an email with a comment or question to me, Craig, at inglespodcast.com or to Reza at belfastreza@gmail.com.
You could also visit our online store. Go to store.mansioningles.net and there you'll find other courses and books and various other methods to help you improve your English.
We really appreciate people who are supporting us on Patreon. And we'd like to say thank you to everybody who is contributing, specifically people who have joined us this month. Ana Sol, thank you. Jennifer Risco Villon, Jose, Angel Hazaz, Jose Luis Hernandez, and Blanca Lorca. Thank you very much for your support. If you would like to become a Patreon member and get access to recent transcriptions of the podcast, go to Patreon, patreon.com/inglespodcast. And for a minimum of $1 per month, you can get instant access to transcriptions. What's next week, Reza?
Next week, we've got Working Abroad.
Okay, we'll see you then. Thank you for listening this week. Until next time, it's goodbye from Reza.
And bye-bye from Craig.
The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.